Imagine having 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. Quite a staggering figure, isn't it? This isn't a hypothetical scenario, but the reality of the human mind. Each day our brains generate a torrent of thoughts, a ceaseless tide of ideas, reactions and musings. It's like a radio that never turns off, a television with endless channels, or a river that never ceases to flow. This constant stream can be overwhelming, like trying to listen to every conversation in a crowded room simultaneously. It can make it challenging to focus on a single task, to find a moment of tranquility amidst the chaos. The mind becomes a noisy marketplace, where silence is a rare and precious commodity. But why does our mind function in such a frenetic fashion? Why does it resist silence and serenity, preferring instead a constant cacophony of thoughts? So why does our mind work this way? And why is it so challenging to quiet it down? To understand this, we first need to grasp the nature of our minds. Just as the heart pumps blood and the lungs draw breath, the mind, too, has a primary function: survival. In the grand symphony of our bodily functions, the mind is the maestro, conducting and coordinating our responses to the world around us. It is ceaselessly alert, forever analyzing and perpetually preparing for potential threats. The mind, you see, is a bit like a vigilant sentinel, always on the lookout for danger. From the moment we wake until we drift off to sleep, it scrutinizes every detail, every sensation, every interaction. It's a master of pattern recognition, connecting the dots between past experiences and potential future scenarios. The mind is not just concerned with physical threats, but also social ones. It helps us navigate complex social dynamics, interpret subtleties in communication, and respond appropriately. It's always ready to spring into action, to protect us from harm, be it physical or emotional. But what happens when this survival tool, this master analyzer, doesn't switch off? Imagine a sentinel who constantly sounds the alarm, even when there's no imminent danger. That's what happens when our mind gets caught in a loop of overthinking. It's like a hamster on a wheel, running tirelessly, but getting nowhere. The mind's incessant chatter is not a sign of malfunction, but rather an indication of its efficiency. The mind is designed to think, to analyze, to solve. It's a problem-solving machine on overdrive. In a world where threats were once clear and present, this was a valuable trait. But in our modern, relatively safe world, this ceaseless mental activity can seem excessive, even burdensome. The mind's default state is not one of tranquility, but of activity. It's wired to engage with the world, to question, to ponder, to plan. It's constantly buzzing, like a bee flitting from flower to flower, gathering nectar. So, our minds are essentially doing their job when they bombard us with thoughts. But how does this affect our mental health? A mind that is always on can lead to mental fatigue and stress. Imagine a computer that's always running, never shutting down, with dozens of applications open at the same time. It's not hard to see how this would lead to system overload, causing the computer to slow down or even crash. This is quite similar to what happens to our minds when we're constantly thinking. The mind is a powerful tool, yes, but it's not designed to be on all the time. Just like that overworked computer, our minds too can experience system overload, manifesting itself in the form of mental fatigue and stress. When we're always thinking, always processing, we're not giving our minds the rest they need to rejuvenate and refresh. Now you might be wondering, what's the big deal? Well, let me tell you, the impacts of incessant thinking on our mental health are far from trivial. Constant thinking has been linked to increased levels of anxiety. The mind, in its overactive state, tends to wander towards negative thoughts, fears and worries, creating a vicious cycle of anxiety. And it doesn't stop there. The stress from constant thinking can also make it harder for us to fall asleep. Our minds are so busy processing and analyzing that switching off becomes a Herculean task. This leads to insomnia, which in turn exacerbates our mental fatigue and stress levels, creating a cycle that's hard to break. But that's not all. The effects of constant thinking can also extend to our physical health. Chronic stress, as we know, can lead to a host of physical ailments, from heart disease to digestive problems. It's clear then that the mind, when left unchecked, can wreak havoc on our overall well-being. But is it possible to quiet our minds, and if so, how? In the next scene, we'll explore some techniques that can help us achieve a quieter, more peaceful state of mind, so stay tuned. Yes, it is possible to quiet the mind, and many techniques can help achieve this. One of the most effective techniques is mindfulness. This approach encourages you to focus on the present moment, letting go of past regrets and future anxieties. It's about tuning into your senses, observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. You become a patient observer of your own mind, noticing the ebb and flow of thoughts without getting swept away in their current. Another powerful technique is meditation. This ancient practice has been celebrated for centuries for its ability to calm the mind. It's not about emptying your mind, but rather about observing your thoughts without getting tangled up in them. In this space of observation, your thoughts can quiet down, like a snow globe settling after it's been shaken. Breathing exercises also play a crucial role in quieting the mind. The breath is a powerful anchor, always present, always accessible. By focusing on the rhythm of your breath, you can create a mindful pause, a space for calm amidst the bustle of thoughts. Deep, slow, mindful breathing can help to soothe the mind, like a lullaby for your thoughts. These techniques are not quick fixes. They're not about silencing your mind in an instant. Rather, they're about creating a space of calm, a mental sanctuary where thoughts are not intruders but passing visitors. They're about fostering a more mindful, peaceful relationship with your own mind. Using these techniques, you can learn to navigate the torrent of thoughts with grace and ease. Instead of being overwhelmed by your thoughts, you can become their compassionate observer, their patient listener. You can cultivate a quiet mind, not devoid of thoughts, but rich with mindful presence. But remember, this is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, patience, and practice. It's not about achieving a perfectly quiet mind, but about cultivating a more peaceful relationship with your thoughts. These techniques can indeed help, but they require practice and patience. Now here's a surprising fact that might make you rethink the way you view your thoughts. Ever thought about how many of your thoughts are actually grounded in reality and how many are just figments of your imagination? Well, research suggests that a significant chunk of our thoughts might not be as real or true as we believe them to be. Intriguing, isn't it? Our minds are master storytellers. They weave intricate narratives, create vivid scenarios and formulate assumptions that are often based more on fiction than fact. The mind, in its quest to make sense of the world, can distort reality, exaggerating some aspects while downplaying others. It's like our very own internal Hollywood producing blockbuster drama at a moment's notice. And here's where it gets interesting. These fictional scenarios or distorted realities can lead to unnecessary worry or stress. We might find ourselves fretting over a situation that hasn't occurred yet or may never happen at all. We stress over a comment that was likely made in jest or a glance that probably meant nothing. This is not to say that all our thoughts are false. Many indeed are accurate reflections of our experiences. But it's essential to recognize that our minds have this tendency to spin tales, to dramatize, to create mountains out of molehills. And these imaginary or exaggerated thoughts can have real, tangible effects on our emotional well-being. It's a bit like being lost in a book or a movie. We become so engrossed in the plot, so emotionally invested in the characters, that we forget it's all a work of fiction. Similarly, we can get so caught up in our thoughts, so swept up in the narratives our minds create, that we lose sight of what's real and what's not. So the next time you find yourself overwhelmed by your thoughts, remember, not all of them reflect reality. And that's a thought worth pondering.